Yeah, we got to get back to prayer. We got to get back to prayer. I got to get back to prayer. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. I'm done when I say this. I read once of this missionary who was doing mission work from Michigan in Africa. Let me slow down and say that so you can grab that. I read of this missionary who was from Michigan, but he was doing mission work in Africa. He was a doctor. He was a doctor. And every couple of times a year, he would go over to the rural parts of Africa and bring healing to people. And whenever he ran out of supplies, he would have to get on a bicycle and travel to the city. And to get to the supplies to the city, it was about a day and a half journey. And the people he would buy the supplies for only took cash. But he would travel and trust God to keep him. He would travel and believe God would make a way for him to return to bring healing to the people. One day he's traveling. One day he's traveling. And as he's traveling, he sees two Africans fighting one another. I wish I had time to talk about kind of like what you see now. Two Africans fighting one another. Two Africans killing one another. Two Africans stabbing one another. Two Africans stealing from one another. He sees two Africans fighting one another. And one gets the better of the other and leaves him half dead. Well, this missionary, since he's a doctor and he has a few supplies, he bandages him up, witnesses to him, tells his story about how he comes from Michigan to do mission work and how he travels when he runs out of supplies to the city with all this cash to get supplies. He witnesses to the guy. He brings him up to health. He goes to get his supplies, goes back to the rural. And a month or so later, he runs out of supplies again, gets on his bike to go back to the city. And as he's going back to the city, he sees 5 guys. One of them happens to be the one that he brought back from his injuries. He speaks, he greets them, they greet him. And since it's dark and it's late, he pulls out his knapsack, asks God to watch over him as he sleeps so he would get up in the morning and go get the supplies. When he wakes up, he sees the one fella who he had nursed his injuries standing over him. And the one fella said to him, me and my boys were going to rob you yesterday. Me and my boys were going to take the money you had because remember, you told me you travel with cash. And we made up our mind to rob you, to jack you up, and to get all your money and use it for our own good. And the missionary says, why didn't you? And the fella says, because when we got ready to attack, the 26 people that were with you stood in our way. The missionary says, I was by myself. And the fella says, no, we got ready to attack, and I promise you 26 men stood with you, and we did not want to bother you because it was 26 against 5, and we left you alone. He says, I promise you, I was all by myself. But the African says there were 26, there were 26, there were 26, there were 26. And finally the missionary says, okay, if that's what you think. He goes and gets his supplies. He goes back to the rural. He finishes his mission trip and he goes back to Michigan. And when he gets back to Michigan, like any good missionary, you give a report to your home church. And he stands before his home church and he shares with them, here are the resources you sent me. Here are the things that I did. Here are the things that happened while I was gone. He said, but one day something strange happened. And they say, what happened that was strange? And he told the story about how he had healed the guy. And he told the story about how the guy told him that they were going to jump him, but 26 people would. He said, the strangest thing ever happened because I was by myself. And one man in the congregation said, what day was it? What day was it? what day was it that this happened? And the missionary told him the day that it happened. And the man in the congregation said, that's strange, because on that day I had a burden for you like never before. On that day you came across my mind like never before. On that day the Lord showed me you like never before. So I went to the church to pray for you, but instead of praying by myself, I called 25 other men to come with me so they can pray with me. And you said that they saw 26 men standing with you. That was me and the 25 men that were praying with me. I just stopped to tell you I'm where I am and you're where you are because somebody prayed for me. They had me on their mind. They took a little time just to pray for me. I'm so glad they prayed. I'm so glad they prayed. Boy, I dare you to tell your whole row, just pray for me, pray for me, pray for me. Quit talking about me, quit lying about me, quit trying to see where I live, quit trying to figure out where I drive, quit trying to figure out who I roll with, quit trying to figure out what my mortgage is, quit trying to figure out where I shop, and just pray.